Hey, everybody, it's No Driving Gloves again, and taking advantage of, some opportunities we've had.
Of a global lockdown.
Well, we're trying not to talk about that one. And Sean, jumping on the podcast, been really active in gathering us some guests here for No Driving Gloves. Go ahead and give us an introduction, Sean, briefly of the guest, and then we'll have him do the typical request for 2 minutes, and usually takes 15 minutes summary of what you do.
Absolutely. Today we have Bill Riley of Riley Technologies, and Riley races everything and Riley builds everything. And, Riley Technologies has recently been in the news for something a little bit outside of motorsport, and they have switched some of their production over to, I believe it's the production of masks. I could be completely wrong, but I know that you guys have jumped into helping in the fight with what we have going on with COVID-19, and that popped up on my news feed. And as soon as that popped up on my news feed, I was like, I haven't talked to Bill in a while. Let me go ahead and reach out and see whether I can get you on the program and talk about that. But we want to talk about that and beyond. I mean, we want to talk about what's going on in motorsport over at Riley right now, and how you see things panning out for the rest of the year. But to start the show off, if you want to give us a 2-ish minute synopsis of who Bill Riley is and what you've been involved with you and your father over the years and the various amazing things that you guys have done, and then we'll dig into what's going on right now. So thanks for coming on, Bill.
I appreciate the opportunity to come on for sure. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to be on, and obviously we'd like to be a little busier right now. We all would, but that's the way the world is right now. But we'll get through it. But I'm Bill Riley. I own Riley Motorsports and Riley Technologies with my father, Bob. He started racing in 1949, and at the age of 5, I knew what I was going to do my whole life is be involved in racing on the design and build side. So, we started off in Detroit and moved to Indianapolis and then moved here to North Carolina and really built just about any kind of car there are. We've been heavily involved in NASCAR in the 90s. We've been heavily involved with IndyCar, and then mostly known for sports car work. Kind of seems to be our home where we always gravitate back to, whether that's at racing cars for AMG currently and cars in Ferrari Challenge, or if that's for building our own cars, running our own programs, such as the Viper program that we did for SRT was probably the biggest one and the latest one we did. Yeah, there it is right behind you at COTA, I believe, which it won, which was good. So, it's always one of my favorite cars. It's the Viper just because of the people and all the people that were involved in it. And you got an SRT hat on too, and the people at SRT were so great, and that's made the program great. Absolutely. So, we did obviously Daytona prototypes over the years. Before that, the Mark III. Before that, Trans Am. So we've been involved in almost every different form of road racing, and then along with the other stuff that we do, we dabble in. And then, of course, we like doing different things, and don't really like the subject of why we decided to get into the mass business, or the PAPR business, but Core group down in Rock Hill, Morgan Brady, who runs Core, and they run obviously the Porsches and IMSA. They have their main business, is making miscellaneous things for all types of industries. He gave me a contact of someone that needed some help right away, and we jumped on making a pressurized air respirator, and it's going pretty good.
So it's much more in depth than what I thought it was. Just you were making the masks. I didn't realize you were making the entire respirator. So that's in depth.
Yeah, it's a a battery and a filter system, a HEPA filter, and then the working on the right motor size, working on the right battery size to make sure it'll last a shift in the hospital, and then working on the helmet and the visor and everything that goes along with it.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the entire world, but I think the entire world would probably step up and say companies that are doing what you guys are doing and basically taking a part of your operation and rededicating it to helping in that fight. It's something that it is appreciated across the board. You don't have to be a motorsport fan, you don't have to know who Riley Technologies is or who you and your dad are to appreciate that. So, on behalf of a vast swath of people, thanks for doing what you're doing. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see a company that has dedicated its entire being basically to construction, prototyping, creation, and running all sorts of motorsport, getting involved in that. And it's a neat thing. And that is why I got in touch. I said I didn't want to dwell on it because, quite honestly, we just want to have some fun and make folks happy. Do you want to switch gears, or is there more to that story that I'm not letting you tell?
I mean, right now we've switched, all the engineering, design, and prototype manufacturing over to it. But I kind of feel that, hopefully this will be over soon, and hopefully we can all get back to the normal way we've lived. But obviously, I think it's going to be all a little different. And I'm kind of thinking more that this might be something more for in 2 years when another issue comes up, or 4 years or 10 years,
right?
That, that we have something for, and more for everyone, not just for people on the front lines.
We definitely need to get out in front of it. Sorry, John.
I was going to say, well, we hear of all the big companies, Ford's made news and GM's made news. And it's what's interesting. And of course, Sean and I and everybody involved with the podcast, our news feeds focus on automobiles and automobile companies and racing and such. So I'm seeing a lot of shops like yours, the smaller shops, the smaller businesses, not these mega billion-dollar businesses, revamping a whole business plan. Now, yes, some of it's for income. There's no doubt about that. But some of it is just the need and the ability. And, it's nice to see some people stepping up. I've seen some people create some, quote, new products that might actually have existed for years in different industries and they don't realize it. But, I just want to say it was wonderful that Sean was able to contact you and get you on the show. And I, love promoting some of the stuff. Everybody, a lot of people think cars are evil and racing's evil and all we do is burn gas and pollute, but we're a lot more than that. And everybody talks about the need for racing and technology, and somehow we get a disconnect. What does an Indy car do, or what do your prototype cars do that relates back to the real world? And here it is within 3 or 4 weeks, you're tooling up and you're manufacturing or getting ready to manufacture products to help in the pandemic. And that's all I'll dwell on it tonight.
Yeah, I kind of when people talk about motorsports and in this day and age, and obviously we're burning a lot of fossil fuels and all that type of thing. The way I kind of always look at it with people is that I don't think you're going to find a harder group of people working on fuel mileage on a Sunday afternoon than racers.
That's very
true. Because 50% of these races are fuel mileage. Trying to stretch our windows, trying to get one more lap. At Road Atlanta last year with the AMG, we were 1 lap short after 10 hours of really pushing our fuel economy. So I think that from that point of view, there's a lot that racing can contribute back, because everybody's working on fuel economy on the weekends, and no one else in the world really is.
Right, and here's tangent number one. I wasn't thinking about going down that road, Bill, but when you as an engineer are trying to tackle that problem of don't care whether it's a little 4-cylinder turbo or a big V10. I think what was it? The GT3R Viper was what?
An 8.4
liter. Was it the 8.4 or was it the 8? I thought they kestroked the
GTSR. The LM car was an 8 liter, and the GT3R was an 8.4.
Okay, so you got. I mean, you've crossed the gambit as far as engine size and all of that good stuff. But how do you, as an engineer, sit down and try to figure out the problem of fuel saving when it's literally a game of how fast can you go and how much of a lap are your drivers holding that throttle wide open, because that's where your speed comes from. So how do you do it?
Well, most of our programs, the engine calibrators are top, as they are with every program that's racing, whether it's our AMG program or some of our competition. So the engines usually are running pretty much at their limit. So a lot of it comes to how the driver can save fuel, and us on the data side, the data engineers looking at how we did it to translate it to the other drivers, so we can save fuel that way. That's probably actually the style is a big way of saving fuel, because we already kind of do everything else. The low friction bearings, obviously the aero work, the engine calibration, getting all the drivetrain to the right temp. We kind of do all of those things. But then when it comes down to really saving fuel, it's what can the drivers do. And for example, Jeroen Bleekemolen is one of the top at saving fuel and still being able to do a decent lap time.
Yeah, so it comes down to, once you put the car on the track, it comes down to where does the driver roll out of the throttle? How does the driver roll out of the throttle?
Exactly.
How does he get back to power? As he goes through the apex. From an engine management standpoint, and these are the things where I'm trying to go here is how all of that technology comes together and then gets translated back to a road car, to a car that someone can put in their own garage. One of the things that I've always said is one of the primary functions of racing is to provide a test bed for OEs to further technology. So where do you see your aero work and your engine management work and those high friction bearing technologies that you use? Have you had direct impact on manufacturer programs as a result of that stuff that you
I'm sure over the years it has drifted back and forth a bit, but probably the biggest program that we can all relate to that does a lot of that is the Corvette program with Pratt Miller.
Mm-hmm.
They really work back and forth with Chevrolet a lot on transfer of knowledge and transfer of ideas to improve both the race car and the street car. And obviously it shows, on how good that team and the car is.
Yeah, and how good the current generation cars are as they evolve over time. Definitely. I was just wondering if you had much impact with the Viper program, because I think the Gen 5 was it was more evolved by the time you got your hands on it, correct? But the GT cars.
I think that the Viper program within Chrysler was a little bit isolated from the production car. We had really good production car people we could pull from if we had issues or when we had issues. And obviously they were always jumping up and down to help. But that program, when you look at it, that program was 2.5 years into it. When it got stopped, and the Corvette program is on year 21.
Right.
No, actually, before that they're on year 23 because they started in '97. So they're in year 23 right now. So it's quite a bit different, looking at each way. But obviously the SRT engineers, there were several that were heavily involved, like Matt Benarowitz and Gary Johnson was a program manager, and Russ Rudicelli and Dick Winkles, who was in charge of the engines. They were heavily involved. And then if we had an issue, like let's say if we had an AC issue, they would get the right AC guy to call us or come down right away to sort it out. So it was a pretty good program, but it didn't really, just because of the length of time of the program, didn't go the other way as much.
That makes sense. And more Corvettes are built every year than Vipers have been built in total. So
exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. As far as the transition from Viper to Mercedes, what are the parallels between those cars, and what are the massive differences? If you can speak to that a little bit,
when you look at the Viper program, that was really designed in the spring of 2012, and the AMG was quite a bit later. So the generation of the race car was quite a bit different between the two. About a 5-year gap.
Right.
So the AMG went farther on aero items than we could on the Viper because of the rules at the time. The AMG is extremely reliable. It's not quite as robust as the Viper. The Viper we always joked about it because it was a bit like Rodney Dangerfield in Caddyshack. Like, hey, you scratch my anchor. It's one of those kind of cars.
Right.
While the AMG is a bit more fragile, but the AMG is durable. I mean, it'll run forever unless you hit something. So it's kind of a different mix. But the people at AMG, we walked into a program, Ben Keeney and I, and the car just won Nürburgring the 24-hour when we decided to go that way. And so you're getting a car that, if it wins the 24 hours of Nürburgring, that's pretty brutal.
Right.
So we got a pretty good car, and some people don't believe me when I tell them this, but one of the AMGs, I can't remember what year it was. We got our race car. We leave for Daytona on Monday for the race week, drive down from Charlotte. We received the car on Thursday, the 4 days before we were supposed to leave for the race, for the 24 hours Daytona. And we were able to take Sunday off. That's how good those cars are when you get them from AMG.
Right.
They are really good. And when we ran the car at Daytona during the 24-hour, we didn't open the hood. It didn't have any issues.
Wow.
They're really good race cars. And the GT4 car's the same way. I
talked to Ben during the 24, and he was saying that he was astounded by the reliability too. So that's a monster machine. It's definitely a monster machine. It's one thing that I've always wanted. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
I was going to say, since we're talking about the AMG GT here, and I've got a couple friends that are owners of the road cars, the GT and the GTR. I want to jump in just to put this in a perspective that I'm going to say the real world can understand, but we're talking still real world $250,000 cars. The difference between your GT4 car and the GTR, because the GTR compared to the standard GT, road car is amazingly quicker. I mean, I can't remember, 4 or 5 seconds faster on the Nürburgring than the standard road car. When we jump into the GT4 and that, obviously you're saying, mechanically, are they really any different? Or are we saying that a car that's competing in the 24 hours Daytona translates right back to the road car there and will give you a, German reliable race car? Is that something you can even get into or touch?
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about the GT3 car, but the GT3 car, the AMG, it uses the older V8 engine, a normally aspirated engine, and it uses, a Hewland transaxle dog ring box with paddle shift, and it uses about half the suspension components are stock, or they change the rubber out for sphericals. So it's kind of like halfway between a road car and a street car, while the Viper was way the other way. The Viper was almost all race car.
Right.
Had to use a production frame. So it's hard to say. It's pretty far away from a street car. The GT3 car is. The GT4 car, though, is pretty close to the street car, but it does use the same Hewland transaxle.
Is the 3 car doing a lot of suspension geometry changes or does it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just you can never tell with today's cars. I mean, they're getting so good with their street versions these days that it kind of makes me wonder when we're going to see, or if we're going to see, and this is something that I definitely want to pick your brain on, are we going to see a shift back towards not necessarily showroom stock by any means? I mean, GT cars are going to be GT cars, but we keep seeing GT1 was the rocket ship, and then GT2 came along and they slotted in below, and then all of a sudden they're running faster times than the GT1 cars. GT3 came in as the slot below GT2, and now GT3 cars are basically up to about the same, if not a little bit quicker lap time than GT1 but was a decade ago. Are we ever going to see, in your opinion, a return to, I guess I want to say, more affordable, high-level professional racing, where you don't have to go in and affect so much change to be competitive to a car, a body in white, basically?
I think the GT4 car is kind of at the right limit. You need to have a certain amount of race car in it for it to work. You need to have the right gearbox. The AMG, I think the GT4 car goes 30,000 miles between engine rebuilds, which is pretty good.
That's pretty strong. Yeah.
And then when you look at, let's say if you look at a TCR car, that's probably the next level. but they're still expensive too, just because of all the race car they have to be put into
They're
them.
incredibly expensive cars to buy.
And it's justifiable on how much stuff that you have to do to them. So cost wise. So it's kind of like, to me, the GT4 car and the TCR cars are the right showroom stock level, if you could call it that. Otherwise, the problem is, if you get, like, let's say a street car, whether it's a Mustang or what have you, and you start to gut it and you start to put in a roll cage. Now all the electronics are messed up, so you have to put in all new electronics, because you're stripping the car out and it doesn't like that.
Yeah.
Now you're all of a sudden you get that, you're right up to the $200,000 number before you even know it, and that's why a GT4 car is kind of the right car.
Gotcha. So you don't think we're ever going to go back to a Firehawk type series or something along those lines? Or
there is a series, and it's called Champ Car, and that's the level that's there, that that anybody can participate in and do it.
Champ Car, World Endurance, American Endurance,
right?
All those series. And I've actually been saying for a couple of years now that I think American Endurance, or Champ Car might even be able to do it, rise up to be where Pirelli World Challenge was 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, I'm not. I stay pretty loyal to Champ Car.
Yeah.
So I haven't done the other two to comment, but I do, stay pretty heavily involved in Champ Car, and enjoy that quite a bit.
It's great racing, and what's really amazing to me is it's great racing that most of the world doesn't know about. If you're outside of motorsport, and you mention Champ Car, they wouldn't even know that Champ Car existed alongside IndyCar, much less the current version of Champ Car that we have, which sort of evolved out of the 24 Hours of Lemons, and then the more serious side of the 24 Hours of Lemons. And now you see, folks showing up to Champ Car events with proper race cars. They're no longer low budget race cars. I have a friend who fields a couple of SC400, I think, Lexus, that are basically completely gutted from the ground up, rebuilt as race cars, super dry. I can't help but think, and this is where I really want to pick your brain. Is there a want from the casual race fan to see more of the cars that they could go out and actually buy at the pro level? Or is the pro level the place where the casual race fan wants to go and go, oh my God, that's amazing, and like stare at a prototype or the GT3 AMGs and all of the current GT3 field? Like I'm torn between that. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on
that. I kind of think that we're there, like I said, with GT4. I don't know if you can get much cheaper than that and still have a good solid race car platform.
Gotcha.
That kind of seems to be, I don't want to say the lowest level. It's kind of, fun with the Champ Car or Lemons. You go to those races and you see these cars and it's always, oh, my mom had one of those, or I had one of those, or I
That's
crashed
exactly
one of
where
those
I was
in high
going.
school.
Yeah.
And so it's fun. And typically you have, a group of friends that you're driving with. So like for me, I don't fish and I don't bowl and I don't hunt, but I have a good group of people that we go to the Champ Car races with, and we enjoy going, and sometimes the wives and girlfriends come and sometimes they don't. So, it's a good grassroots kind of thing to do, if not the best, in my opinion.
It's serious enough. To where you get your competitive juices flowing, but it's
for sure.
It's not so serious that when you look at the car, you're like, if anything happens to this, it's a totally different feeling, and I get that. We have a couple cars in the garage right now that one of them is a Lemons car, one of them could be a Champ Car, but unfortunately we have the world's most powerful 305 in a Camaro Mustang Challenge Z28. I don't know why one of the guys that I own it with decided that we blew the 305 that was in it up, and then he sent it off to his ex-Cup engine builder and we got back a 13-1 305, Bill.
Yeah, there you go. What are you going to do with that?
What are you gonna do with it? Literally, it's a track day car now. It's not a race car anymore. It's a car with no home. I guess that's a good way to segue into what are the race cars that you personally have gotten to drive over the years that you loved? What are the ones you hated? And then we'll circle into the what do you have in your garage right now that makes you happy?
Okay. Well, I used to drive a little bit more. I mean, I used to race go-karts. I went all the way up to 250 supercarts and raced across the U.S. and that. Huh?
The Enduros, the laydown ones?
Yeah, the kind of ones that are halfway. You know, they had a wing and all that. And then when my son was born in early 2002, I stopped because it was a bit too dangerous, you know, to have a small family. So I raced karts for a while, and then I had a Mark III, the Daytona winning Mark III from '96, and I tested that a few times. Then obviously it got to a point where, like, you know, I need to sell this because it's a pretty big asset to have around, you know, versus you don't want to have your race car worth more than your house, you know. So it was a bit off. So I had to get rid of that or got rid of that. And I was driving for some people, and I was getting ready to get into a car for a guy. We were at Daytona. And, you know, one of the crew guys asked him, hey, you know, what happens if Bill wrecks his car, you know? And the car owner at the time said, oh, it's not a big deal. He'll just fix it for me or give me a discount on a new Daytona prototype. And I kind of had to go, whoa. You know, Bill the driver or Bill the halfway driver and Bill the race car builder are two different bills. You know, there's no transition, right? You know, from the business side to me wrecking the race car you asked me to drive. So I kind of got out of it a little bit, but driving that Mark III, the one that had the Oldsmobile Aurora engine in it, so it didn't have a lot of torque. It had a lot of horsepower. It was really a nice car to drive, like crazy nice. And people come up to me and tell me that have driven Mark IIIs in anger, telling me that was the best race car they ever drove. And it really was a good car. Recently, I was able to drive a super performance GT40 Mark II at a test, but unfortunately I hurt the clutch. So the test was fairly shortened because of that, but that was a cool car to drive just because, you know, here's this, you know, Ford GT Mark II, you know, it was a GT40 Mark II. It was a fun car to drive. So kind of driven a little bit of everything, I guess. I drove a Daytona prototype a little bit, but not a whole lot. But, you know, so I kind of gravitated more towards chump car just because I didn't get scared if I was going to get hurt in a car, not hurt. I didn't get scared of financially getting hurt if the car wrecked. And that was a bit more relieved for me to do.
It feels a lot better to drive a car that you know you can walk away from if it might be your fault, it might be a mechanical, it might be someone else's fault, but you need to know in the back of your mind that you're going to be able to eat tomorrow if whatever you're racing is.
I had a guy one time, Buddy Bennett, who has a big vintage company now, tell me one time that you know, if you're a driver owner, you need to be, you know, emotionally and financially ready to leave your race car at the racetrack sometime, because eventually you're going to have to leave the car there. Like, it's not coming home. So that kind of sets a tone to what level you need to be at.
That makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. So, John, do you have anything you want to add there, or do you want me to?
Well, I was going to get into to try to take it a little bit for our more casual listener in looking at the Riley Technology website, and get into a little bit of, you know, kind of what you offer, because I'm more of a background guy. I don't get into cars. Get into race cars. I don't race.
Say yes, you do.
And mainly for the last statement you made. I don't make enough money to race. I want to win, and I don't make enough money to win. I can get out there and probably drive around the track or autocross or whatever and be fine, but I want to win, and I don't have that kind of time or money. But when we get into the Riley Technology website, you know, it's offering, you know, assistance in customer racing. It's offering classic race car restoration, and you had some pretty cool cars highlighted there.
Yeah.
Designing the AC units for race cars, and
Mhm.
okay, surprise, there's AC in race cars.
Yeah.
And the 3D printing and water jets, and personally, I'm into CNCs, and 3D printing is alternative from cars. And
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about some of these functions of Riley Technologies that obviously relate back to race cars, but what are we doing with this? I mean, I fully understand the benefits of a water jet. Didn't understand it when I walked into my previous job, and after being around a same size water jet you have for 10 years, I still want to get one for the house. I just can't afford a water jet for the house.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, people make fun of me about how much I love the water jet. And, so it's just a big, for people who don't know, it's just a big table, probably, I don't know, let's say 8 feet by 20 feet. And, you lay the metal or material, whatever you want to cut on it, and it'll just, the water pressure along with the sand or the granite would goes ahead and cuts the material. So it cuts, we have a friend that makes jewelry. So we cut things for her jewelry business, all the way up to 2-inch thick steel and everything in between, and it can cut something faster than anything else. And then you start designing around it upstairs in the drawing office. You start drawing all your parts to kind of clip together and just be welded up. So it works out really well. It's a great tool.
Yeah, one of the Lotus restorations I did, we had to fabricate engine mounts, and when you looked at them in the 2-dimensional form, they looked like some sort of medieval weaponry. And once they're all folded, they make these nice little J's and such. And the water jet that we had, and of course we did tours because I was in a very public building and facility. It's amazing. We could cut up to 6-inch steel on ours. Very rarely did we. We 2-inch, and you'd show the people the granite and the steel you cut. And then we had this always 1/8 thick or 1/4 thick spiraled piece of glass where it's gentle enough to cut glass without shattering it. So it kind of is an amazing tool. And, I understand, it seems all the hobbyists are getting into plasma tables, but there's really a difference between a water jet and a plasma table and the way it treats the material. And
I never liked the plasma, and everybody tries to talk me out of it or talk me into it. But my fabricators don't like it because the edge of the metal you have to weld on. It's not great. So we're always trying to do more aircraft style work on our fabricating parts. So the metal has to be perfect all the time. So that's why we stayed with the water jet.
So you said you're doing some jewelry for a friend. Is that a friend, or are you guys? Or is Riley Technologies available for small scale production work or small scale design? Or
well, we charge her just to make sure. We charge her. That's not a problem.
We're sure it's not complimentary, but
no. But she's she's my wife's yoga instructor, and she's her good friend. So but we do all kinds of things. We did a job for a group that was 30,000 parts, and we do a job for her, which is, a bunch of small parts out of copper. So we do a wide variety of stuff, and we do a lot of brake pads. Oddly enough, if you have a brake pad material and it's not the right shape, we go ahead and water jet it into the right shape. So we do a lot of that also. So it's just amazing, and we have our other parts of our business. Our composite group is pretty diverse, and we do a lot of different things there. A lot of things within the industry, and it's on the WeatherTech website. But if you buy a carbon fiber license plate frame from WeatherTech, it comes from our facility. We build all those here, in Mooresville, North Carolina. So, anything from a license plate frame all the way to prototype tubs, we do it all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have I got a couple CAD files for you, sir? We'll talk after.
Okay. We have a couple, like the composite shop. Some people might be interested in this that are into racing, but we just did a set of body molds for the front engine GTP car, Mustang GTP car from 1983. We're restoring one of those cars here, carbon tubbed car from 1983. The first sports car that was a carbon tubbed. And so we're doing a full restoration on that for a group. And we just made a new set of body molds for that.
Is that the one that's on your webpage, the 06 car? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is an evil machine.
Yeah.
In the
it's
best
pretty cool.
ways, that thing is.
Yeah.
That's bonkers.
Should be fun.
It's what else do you guys have going on? John brought it up, the classic car restoration side.
Yeah.
You're doing the GTP car right now. Do you have is it concurrent? Do you have a bunch of projects going on? And what have you guys worked on over the years? I didn't even realize that was part of Riley Technologies' business.
Well, typically we like to do cars that we were heavily involved with. So we have a Mark III we're restoring. We have Paul Newman's Trans Am Mustang that we did for Paul, where we finished a rebody on that for a customer. Doing a Ferrari Challenge car for somebody, an older Ferrari Challenge car. And we have a reproduction Greenwood Corvette that we're, getting ready to go racing whenever we go racing again. So
Which generation Greenwood?
It's 76.
Oh wow! So
I saw the Greenwood on your website, and I just always love that Greenwood wide body kit. And that there's Jerry's Corvettes in Chillicothe, Illinois. I had one for all my high school life and beyond, and I don't know if it's still there. Jerry's is still there. Jerry's not, but Jerry's is, and that funky wide body.
So that's a really cool car, and so my father was involved with the Greenwoods on that car for sure. And actually Bert Greenwood gave us some of the original drawings that Bob did of that car in 1973. So we're checking some things on that. But that's always the best conversation piece, because it's a big block Chevrolet and it doesn't have any mufflers on it. It's just straight out. The exhaust goes straight out right at the middle of the door there. And whenever someone who's kind of into racing, or not kind of, someone who's not too much into racing comes to the shop, you say, "Oh, you ever heard a really loud car before?" And they're like, "Oh yeah." So we fire that monster up, and it just just shakes the building. It's great.
What are, if you know off the top of your head, I don't want to put you on the spot, do you know what the specs are as far as what kind of power it's putting down and what it weighs and things like that? Because that is just a monster.
That's fair. The engine in it's fairly mild. I think it's probably at 750 horsepower.
Fairly mild
for a big block Chevrolet. And then I think it weighs right at 2,700 pounds, 2,600 pounds.
It has all the tire in the world underneath.
Yeah.
That is a cool machine. That's
the biggest tires that were made at the time. That's why it has those tires on it.
What are those? They look like 435s or 535s. They're just
they're 17 inches. They're 17 inches. I mean, I think they're 18 inches wide.
Okay.
Yeah,
huge.
So they're big.
That's almost a Flintstone tire on the back of that car. That almost goes all the way across.
Yeah, the front is small though in comparison, so it's a bit of a different setup on the car, but it's got a big rear tire, that's for sure.
All right, I'm gonna while I'm on this screen, I'm gonna switch over to the Mustang.
Yeah.
And that Mustang it's a GTP car from what era, Bill? And
that's 1983.
83. What's the power plant in that thing?
That had a 4-cylinder turbo, and that was kind of the issue with that car. Is they had a lot of engine reliability issues. It won its first race, but then it always had engine failures after that. I don't even know if it finished the race. It had just engine failure after engine failure.
Gotcha. So was it based off the 2.3 turbos that Ford was using in that era? Or
it was based off the 1.6 liter Cosworth.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
It was a small engine. And then I don't know, on that picture, you can't really, I don't think I see him, but Gary Pratt was the lead fabricator on that car.
Okay.
So that's, my father and Gary Pratt worked together, basically for my whole life. I think they started on the Greenwood Corvettes. And so they've always worked together, until the split. But anyway, Gary's been a long-time family friend. I don't know if he likes me or not, but it's a long-time family friend.
Why would he not like you, Bill? It's perfect.
Do you know Gary? He's kind of tough to read a little bit.
Yeah, there are a lot of folks out there like that.
Yeah, true. I'm just kidding. Gary's a great kid.
I'm going to keep going down the line just because there are a lot of folks that probably don't know the cars that Riley's been involved with over the years. And
Yeah.
the one that I have up on the screen right now, I'm going to let you tell folks what it is and what the car is all about.
Well, that's a Mark III right there. We built 22 of those over a year span from, let's say, 95 to 99. And our main competition was a 333 Ferrari. And, it was kind of a deal. We won Daytona 3 times. They won Daytona once. They won Daytona or Sebring twice or 3 times. We won Sebring once. So we kind of went back and forth and traded wins and championships all during that era. And it was really a great time. The Ferrari engine was great, tons of power. And we had cars powered by Chevrolet, Fords, and Oldsmobiles and up against them. And then we ran, that actual car was our team car that we ran out of the shop. And Wayne Taylor was the lead driver on that.
And it's an open cockpit prototype for those of you that are just listening to the audio. Ran extensively you ran that in the ALMS and Rolex, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it ran, back then it was IMSA. I mean, if you look at in front of the rear tire, it's IMSA. But, 95, 96, 97, that was all IMSA. But that car, that was, 650 horsepower and 1,900 pounds and a 16-inch wide rear tire. They were flat bottom cars, and it was really reborn out of the GTP era to get costs out of the cars. So, we would sell those cars with no engine for around $300,000 at the time. Mm-hmm. That was in the mid '90s, so it was pretty affordable to go race for an overall win. But it was really just a great time. And we took it to Le Mans a few times also.
How did it run at Le Mans? It's a beautiful car. It looks to be a little shorter. Is it a little shorter wheelbase than what would typically go to Le Mans, or was it pretty much?
It's 110-inch wheelbase.
Okay.
It was fairly long at the time. Okay. It looked short just because we cut the back off for drag. That was a more efficient way to do it. But that car was fair at Le Mans. We didn't have enough time in development to go to Le Mans. We didn't have enough development aero-wise because we decided to go to Le Mans in Victory Lane at Sebring.
Okay.
Believe it or not. So
all right, we need to get into that story. dig deeper there.
Yeah, so we won Daytona with that car, and then we won Sebring with that car. And when we were in Victory Lane at Sebring, I don't know who, but somebody started chanting Le Mans because we're going to go for the Triple Crown, which has never been done. And so everybody was chanting Le Mans, and I was a team manager at the time. Mark Scott was crew chief. My dad was the engineer. And I got back, and Mark and I looked at the rules real quick, and the entry was due, I think, like on Tuesday after Sebring. So we sent our entry in, and all of a sudden now we're going to Le Mans.
And they accepted you immediately.
Yeah, I think
that's not normal. That's not normal either.
No, I think back then we had to pre-qualify.
Okay.
So they accepted us to go to pre-qualifying.
Okay.
Which is another story. So then we entered Le Mans, talked to all our partners at Oldsmobile and Danka and Pirelli, and we got the budget together. And then we realized with pre-qualifying that we need another car because there's a race between pre-qualifying and Le Mans. So we had to build another car to race in America, a lightweight car. So we shipped the winning car over to Le Mans and built another car to do the sprint races while we're in Le Mans.
Oh my God.
So it was a lot of work.
That was a little bit more than that $150 Le Mans entry fee.
Yeah, it was a bit more than 150. But I think at that time, I think I was the youngest entrant at Le Mans. I think I was age 27 when we put the entry in. So that was kind of cool. But we went to Le Mans. Le Mans was a great experience. We broke a gearbox halfway through. In our trophy room, I have the Daytona trophy, I have the Sebring trophy, and I have the pinion from Le Mans, next to it. So almost got a Triple Crown.
You bring back what you can bring back.
Exactly.
Hardware is hardware, sir.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun.
How many times have you guys been to Le Mans over the years?
With cars? It's hard to say.
Yeah, with cars.
Sometimes I go as a consultant. Sometimes I go for meetings, and then sometimes it's the whole team, like we're going, So I'd say reading cars we actually ran there maybe 10 times.
Okay.
Over the years, 96 being the first year.
Okay.
And then, then recently with the Ford GT this last year.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that.
We can talk about it if you want
Unless
to.
you want to talk about that.
I'm okay to talk about any question
Okay.
you have on it. I can answer.
I came unglued. I've known Ben for a while now too, and on the edge of my seat at the end of that race, and
Oh yeah.
I was jumping up and down in my living room the way you guys were jumping up and down in the pits. I mean,
Yeah.
I was just so happy. What happened? I've read the stories, but
Yeah.
how did it get to where it was, and how did it unfold to where it got taken away?
It's kind of we weren't the quickest car, so we know we're going to have to push it to win, and we didn't really. Ganassi was huge amount of help. We couldn't have done it without them, and we were pitted next to them. This is the group out of Indianapolis, and the WEC team was helpful too whenever we need anything, but huge amount of help. And they're very strict about fueling. They're very strict on this, and we never really did a super accurate pump out. We did it with all our stuff, and we were real close. We're like, okay, we're close on that. And then on the refueling time, okay, we're close on refueling time. We should be okay. And, would you know, in the race, we were just a hair too quick on fuel. And I think we're 0.4 seconds, over 45 seconds, we were 0.4 too fast. And we just were pushing the envelope too far.
It was so minimal.
Yeah. But but there's there's two kinds of cheating. There's like pushing the envelope of the existing rules, like being underweight, carrying too much fuel, refueling too fast, those kind of things. Then there's like cheating, like, oh, we, change the camshafts in the engine, or we, mixed our own fuel or this or that. Now that's blatant, like we know we're cheating. So we just pushed the envelope too far. So at the end of the race, it takes 6.5 liters to do a lap at Le Mans with that car. And we were 0.3 liters too big on capacity. So,
okay.
But, the car that was leading the WEC championship, they finished second to us. And Ford didn't pulled out of the WEC championship, not real super gracefully. And so it was just it was an eerie feeling the whole month.
Yeah.
For me, so it was just a bit weird.
Now, I'm a Lotus guy and been a Lotus guy for years, as many of our listeners know. I'm not sure you know. And all of a sudden I jump back to, and I'm a conspiracy theorist at times, Chapman got disqualified from Le Mans back in 56 or 57 because what was it with the 23? It might have been with the 23, so it would have been like 62, because the rear wheels had 6 lugs and the front wheels had 4 lugs, and it was a way to get him out of the race.
Right.
Do you think there's any of that little French, we don't want an American to win this again type deal, or do you think all those politics are 50 years in the past?
It wasn't too much against the Americans, I don't think. But it was a different feeling. I mean, we were in tech for 32 hours, which is a long time.
I remember reading that. And I remember reading that when it came out that the margins were so close.
Yeah.
There's part of me that's like, it's so close. How could you possibly take that away? And then there's the racer side of me that understands that a rule's a rule.
Rule's a rule.
I get it from both perspectives, but I will say this, and for the folks that are listening that don't fully understand what we're talking about, Bill and the team and Ben Keating and all of the drivers and everybody that's involved, you basically had your Le Mans victory taken away in scrutineering after the race.
Yeah, we got disqualified.
Right. Right. So it didn't. Was there a little bit of thought to keep, or to try to keep running the Ford GT after that? Or
I think Ben would probably be a better person to talk about that. But Ben, my father was a Ford employee. My father worked on the GT40 Mark IIs and Mark IVs at Carcraft.
I didn't know that.
I'm a Ford guy. Deep down, I grew up as a Ford kid. I was born in Dearborn, Michigan. I'm a Ford kid.
Gotcha.
And so running a Ford at Le Mans was fairly, that was pretty fun for me because here we are where my father was, in '66. But I think that Ford was ready to put a bookend on the Ford GT program. They're ready to stop it, and I think Ben tried quite a few different avenues to do something. All which would be he would still, even if they said okay, we'd have to think about it because it's not affordable. It's not an affordable car, and so it just didn't work out. I think both financially and I think Ford was ready to put a bookend in that project.
And if they're ready to pull the plug on what up to then had been a factory supported program, and like you said, make it cost prohibitive, it does make sense to switch over to something like a customer based AMG GT3.
Yeah, and I don't want to say how much more affordable a customer based Porsche is than a Ford GT, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
Orders of magnitude, cubic dollars. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah,
and of course Ben's running well in that championship right now and all that, so that I'm sure he's going to be fine.
I hope so, and we should have Ben on. I think we're going to have Ben on next week actually.
Oh, okay.
So it's definitely looking forward to that and continuing bits and pieces of this conversation.
It wasn't fun. I was the one that had to call him, so it was not fun at Le Mans.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine. I mean, I'm outside looking in, and I was heartbroken for you guys. I cannot imagine going from that level of high to, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened. With where we're at right now, I don't think we've really touched on this. How do you see us getting back to racing, man? Like, do you have a plan in place, or I imagine it's just like endurance race strategy. It's an ever evolving plan right now. So is there anything though that you see outside looking in or inside looking in right now that tells you that we're going to get back to racing sometime in 2020, or is it a 2021?
I think we'll get back. I think we'll get back. Who knows what that'll actually look like? Who knows if there's spectator events or non-spectator events? I don't know, but I think we'll get back. And I'm kind of looking off in the distance because I'm looking at my wall calendar, and I think, obviously we have Watkins Glen at the end of June. Hopefully we'll be able to hit that. Cool. I don't know about Mosport the next weekend because of, I think that they're a bit more on lockdown in Canada than they are here in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they want a bunch of, people coming over. And then at the same, then you have Lime Rock and you have Road America. But I imagine sometime, hopefully June, July, or August we'll be racing. I mean, maybe it's an abbreviated schedule or maybe it's a full schedule. But I think IMSA wants to get back to the track. Mm-hmm. All the teams want to get back to the track when it's safe and when everybody's safe and when this is all over. But I think we're all ready to get back to the track.
Now
I know IMSA will go back to the track as soon as it's safe for everyone.
Right.
Now, you said there you don't know if it's going to be a partial schedule or a full schedule. Do you even remotely conceive of IMSA all of a sudden saying, hey, we're going to pick up the 6 races or the 4 races we missed from the spring and we're going to throw them on the calendar? And is that obviously that's going to make you as a team and a team support company busier than you've ever been in your life? Or is that even a conceivable thing? Or?
Well, it is a little bit. I mean, right now Detroit's gone, and that's the only one that hasn't been replaced yet. So we're just going to see Detroit and Long Beach. So right now everything else is still there. But yeah, it's going to be a busy fall. Like right now, a lot of the race team is taking all their time off because it is a time to take time off, and it is time to rest up because the fall is going to be a tough one.
So you're going to literally have to go back to your NASCAR days and figure out how to turn cars around in a week or in 4 days.
Both AMG programs, so the GS program and the GTD program, both have backup cars. Okay. So, or second cars, whatever you want to call it.
All right.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see that happen. I just can't wait to see the return to the real tracks. And now that I've said the return to the real tracks, have you been involved with, or are you thinking about getting involved with the whole iRacing hop on the simulator? Do you ever hop in to iRacing?
No, I'd have to spend too much time on a sim to get good. You know, I'd have to spend a lot of time to get you know, I don't want to even say respectable, to get not made fun of.
It's a different world. It's totally
a different world.
It's a different world.
You know, I'm busy. You know, like, you know, we're busy making this system for the medical system. I have I kind of have, I don't want to say an agenda, but I already have a lot of things I do outside of work and racing, and I don't have time to go sit in a sim for a couple hours a night to get good.
Right.
You know, I have, whether I'm prepping the car for the Champ Car race in the evenings or working on a new Champ Car. I'm working on a Cobra at home. I have a really good group of neighbors that I spend a lot of time with on the lake. So it's kind of like I'm fairly busy outside of my desk.
Are you busier now than before all this started to happen? Because I am actually busier today than I was 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. It's crazy.
I would say there's a bit of a gun to our head on the mask, you know, because it's kind of like trying to make a deadline for a race with a car that's not built yet.
Right.
So there's a bit of a deadline on that. But I'm able to take a little bit more time off. I took actually 3 days off for Easter, which I usually don't do. So I can take some more time off, but we're trying to minimize the amount of people here, but still have the mass program going strong. So it's a bit of a, you know, you're juggling. It's a different world.
It just basically sounds like, you know, I'm in the same boat. Sean's in the same boat. You just submitted to it too. You've chosen, as opposed to treat this as a vacation, is to treat this as an, you know, kind of an opportunity to take, you know, the mask obviously is something that came up because of the situation, but to take the opportunity to expand what you're doing or improve on what you're doing or research or branch out to a couple of things. You know, we had Tom Cotter, the author, on a couple of weeks ago, and he started writing a book on Porsche that he hasn't yet to sign the deal on, but he said, when am I going to get this kind of time uninterrupted to sit down and write? Exactly. So he was 4 or 5 weeks, and I can't remember how many pages into this book. I think 100,000 words or something. And, you know, just
doesn't have a commitment for it yet.
but you know, taking advantage. And like I said, I'm doing the same thing. Sean's business launched right at the beginning of this and is actually,
that's not scary at all.
No, not at all.
It's busy. So,
speaking of Tom Cotter, last question. We've had you for about an hour. You mentioned the Cobra. Tom Cotter has the Cobra in the barn,
Right.
You have a Cobra in the garage, it sounds like. So is that your current favorite car that you have at your house that you're working on, or what's the deal with the Cobra? What is it like? Just
I picked up a kit that was sitting for a long time.
Okay.
And I always have to. It's kind of like my therapy. I have an old Ford F-250, which, you know, we call the therapy truck. You know, because it's always, as Ben Keating says, it has more problems than a run over dog. Like, it's like everything's wrong. It's an '86 bull nose, you know, so it's kind of cool.
It's like, Bill, I'll sell you a new one. I'll make you a good deal on a new one.
He sold me a new. I have a new Ram 3500 that I really like.
There you go.
And so he sold me that right before the virus. So I have a new truck, I have an old truck, then the Cobra, then Chump Cars after that.
So that's your therapy outside of Riley Technologies and the customer racing programs and everything. That's rare. Like most folks that work in the field that you're in don't want to go home and touch a car. A lot of them don't anyway. So it's kind of cool to hear that.
Remember though, like when I'm at work, Riley Tech, you know, from 7 to 6, whatever the time is, 7 to 5, I don't touch cars.
Okay.
You know, I'm working on stuff or talking with customers or working on programs or, you know, making sure things are going well. I don't really get involved too much in the actual hands-on stuff. So when I'm at home, you know, I have a tool. I have my Snap-on tools from when I was 20 still, and I just piddle in the garage. It's not like this Cobra is going to be done the fastest amount of time of any Cobra ever built. I just take my time and tinker with it. You know, and it has a big 428 Internet FE, so it's cool to be working on all that old stuff. So it's fun.
It sounds like fun. It sounds like fun. Again, thank you for your time, Bill.
No problem.
It doesn't seem like we've had you for an hour, but we've had you for an hour.
No problem.
Is there anything that you want to add to this, Mr. Viviani?
No, I learned a lot. Frankly, when Sean emailed me a couple days ago and said we were having you on, I knew Riley. I knew, the race chassis and that. I followed him since the 90s. I've always been more of a sports car guy than an open wheel guy, NASCAR guy. So I had an idea, and of course I researched some, and I've learned a lot. It's great to see you doing what you're doing for the situation we're in. So I really don't have any questions. I just kind of sat here, as Sean has done with some of the interviews and the people I drag on, going, you end up learning a little bit. That's why I think the multi-person interviews are great. But
yeah, I think you asked about our next race, but hopefully our next race is Memorial Day weekend at Watkins Glen with the champ car. Hopefully that'll be the next our next big race.
Are you still running the Probe?
No, we have a Camaro.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a Camaro that we run. It's actually an old Ace sedan car that we converted over. So we run that, and then we're working on some other stuff. So hopefully we can get some other stuff to the track soon.
It was very nice to have you on the show, Bill. I'm going to go ahead and say thank you for coming. Thank everyone for following along with No Driving Gloves. Things are definitely exploding on No Driving Gloves. I mean, we're busy. John, myself, Derek, and Will, we're very busy making this thing work. Don't go anywhere, Bill, because I'm going to shut this thing down and say thank you to our audience. But I want to talk to you just for a moment after we shut it down.
Sounds good. John,
thanks for doing this midday, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. We do it when we can. Again, like Sean said, No Driving Gloves, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, NoDrivingGloves.com. I think you can look up if you want to see Riley. It's RileyTech.com, I believe is your website. If you want to kind of see some of the stuff these guys are playing with, maybe get some jewelry or something to cut out on the water jet.
Jewelry or brake pads, let us know.
Yep. We're going to talk about something other than jewelry and brake pads for the water jet in just a second.
Okay, cool.
So thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Thank y'all.